Good morning, Leanne Mazaray on YouTube. Checking in with you again today as I walk on my daily walk. I give you tips about being an entrepreneur and building passive income and whatever else you need to make your life work better for you. I'm here to help you. If you want coaching, if you want to find out what I'm doing, click the link wherever it is later on in the video and I can give you more details there. But for right now, what I want to talk to you about is managing tenants. Now, in my video series, I focus on two types of topics. One is how to make money passively, and the other is how to just keep yourself happy in your life so that you can enjoy whatever it is that you're doing, whether it's building your passive income or maintaining it, or just thinking about doing it, maybe getting out of a job or a situation that you don't like. So I coach people on how to do that and some tips and mindsets that are very, very important for them on that journey. So today we're talking about managing tenants because I have several rental properties in Florida that are fully occupied and producing cash flow for me. Now, part of the success of a rental property program is having good tenants. Because if you go to all the trouble to get your property ready for the market, maybe like in my case, you buy it in an auction, it's significantly dilapidated, and you spend some hard-earned money to fix it up and then have some tenants move in. Well, if the tenants don't take care of the property, and even though they pay their rent on time, you may end up with a loss at the end of the year or 2 years or however long it is when they move out if they leave your property in a really damaged state. So now you're after coming up with $10,000 to repair things that weren't broken when they moved in, and usually their security deposits aren't enough to cover that kind of damage. Now luckily I've never had that kind of a problem. In fact, I've never had to withhold anybody's security deposit ever. Well, I take that back. I had a roommate once whose dog chewed up my couch. But that's kind of a different situation. But not terribly different. I mean, he had a security deposit, $450 or something. Was it enough to cover the damage? No, not really. That's the one and only time that I ever kept somebody's security deposit, and he understood because he was really sorry about what his dog had done. But in many cases, tenants aren't sorry or they don't care unless you get nice tenants who treat the property like it's their own. And that's really ideally what you're looking for. So you have to first figure out what kind of neighborhood is your property in. If you're buying properties at a really dilapidated price in a really dilapidated neighborhood, a lot of times your tenants are going to be pretty dilapidated themselves. Which isn't always to say that's true, but it just makes life a lot easier if you can screen your tenants in advance and, decide, is this a neighborhood I'd like to live in? Do I even feel safe coming over here to maintain my property and inspect it? If I had to come over here and evict somebody, would I be worried about getting shot, or getting hurt, just coming around the neighborhood? So that's the first thing to consider when you're picking your property. But then you want to consider, so that's going to attract a kind of tenant, a different kind of tenant for a nicer neighborhood, because they want to live in a nicer place too. And presumably they have enough money to pay the rent. Now, what rent should you ask? I typically ask a little more than market value if my place has currently been freshly remodeled. If everything's brand new and working right, and I can get a little bit more. And if they have a pet, I take a $250 non-refundable pet deposit, because chances are there's going to be something that dog or cat or whatever does to the house that probably will cost a lot more than $250. At the very least, I have the floors professionally cleaned or the carpets professionally cleaned. So if they don't want to pay that for their pets, then just forget it, because most people expect to pay that as in exchange for having their animals live with them. I'm an animal lover, so I know how hard it is to find places that take pets. So if I have a place with a tile floor, and sometimes I even put a doggy door in, you know, if that's what people are looking for, and a fenced yard. But I've even had tenants offer to fence the yard for me, just because they needed a place so badly. They were, I don't know, lost. They lost their home. Not necessarily their home, but their rental, because somebody wanted to move back in, the owner wanted to move back in, or the owner was putting it on the market, or whatever happens. Sometimes people come to you who are really good people, good tenants. They're just having a really hard time finding a place that will take their dogs. So, you know, give them a second thought. Sometimes they're really grateful. And you really want to have a tenant who's grateful rather than somebody who's looking for ways to stick it to you. And that's another thing about managing the tenants. Make sure that when they tell you that something is wrong in the house, that you have it checked out. And get it checked out quickly. I mean, if it's a plumbing problem, particularly, have a good plumber on your speed dial or whatever. And if he's somebody who can get there quickly, even if it costs you $125 for a service call, that could save you thousands down the road. If there's a burst pipe or a leaky toilet, or you know, a shower valve that's not working correctly, all that stuff can just leach, or all that water can drain into your home and just damage your cabinetry, leak behind the walls, you know, rot the boards underneath your tub. I mean, it can be significantly expensive later on if you don't fix it. A lot of these houses that I buy used to be rentals, and they had problems like that their landlords just let go and go and go for who knows how long, maybe years. And they don't encourage their tenants to tell them about things like that when they're going wrong. So even if it could have been fixed earlier, sometimes the landlord doesn't know about it. So I always encourage my tenants to let me know right away if something is wrong. Now, that said, I try to look for tenants who are fairly stable. You know, if it's a couple, try to find out if they've been together at least a couple of years and they're not just brand new trying to go into a house together, which can be great for a while. But if they've never lived together before, next thing you know, they're splitting up and they're leaving the house and they're fighting, and it's just bad juju. So most of my tenants are couples, married couples or engaged couples, and in fact none of them have any kids. So they're starting out, or they might be restarting. Sometimes those are the best people, because they're older, they're more mature, you know, they're in their late 30s or 40s, and they're just looking to have a nice home that's not the one they just got out of for whatever reason. And then, you know, you want to either do a background check or just get them to fess up about their credit. When people are honest about what's wrong with their credit, I think they'll be honest with you about a lot of things, because they've come to terms with what's happening in their lives. For example, one married couple has rotten credit because they both were married to spouses who ruined it for them. So now they're each gone from that spouse, but still carrying along their credit history, which really follows you around. I mean, it's a topic for another conversation, but you know, if they're honest with you about things that have happened, you know, try not to penalize people too hard for stuff that happened like 8 or 5 or 10 years ago. You know, people can change a lot in that amount of time, and sometimes I think those credit reports are really punitive. Same way with people who have felonies. I've met a lot of really, really hardworking, nice people who did something really stupid when they were 21, and now they're 35 and they've got a felony on their record that's following them around forever. And they have a hard time renting because they get turned down all the time. Now, I'm not saying that you want to go around and have a bunch of felons and sex offenders in your in your property, you know, because that isn't always good for the neighborhood. But on the other hand, just try to think of people as human beings and not the sum total of their credit rating. You know, I've had dinged credit for years, and I find it just completely so unfair compared to the viability of me as a credit risk. I pay my bills on time all the time. I don't get into bills that I can't pay. But because something happened a long time ago, 10, 12, 7 years ago, it's like I'm destined to pay and pay and pay and pay and pay. It gets very discouraging. So when someone gives me a chance, I've always appreciated that, and I'm always willing to pay a little more for that, like a private money loan versus a conventional loan. That's also another subject. But what I'm saying here is, you know, get a feel for your tenants. See, how do you like them? Not just how do they look on paper, but do you get a sense from them? Are they upstanding individuals? Do they have productive lives? Are they healthy? Do they have good habits? Are they polite? Do they answer your questions thoroughly? Do they respond to your phone calls in a timely manner? All of this stuff kind of plays into whether or not you would want to work with them down the road. Because if you get a tenant for a year or 3 years or 5 years, or maybe you even do a lease to own type of contract with them, you're going to be working with these people for a long time. So just keep that in mind when you set about getting tenants for your rental properties. They're human beings. They are your source of income, but you don't want to get stuck into their sob stories. So you want to find people who are responsible, who are not going to try to make their problems your problems, and who will treat your property with respect and treat you as the landlady or landlord with equal respect. That's all I have on that subject today. Peace out, Lily, or Leanne Mazare at YouTube. Checking out.